Welcome to Kick Back with Chris. Kick Back with Chris, the martial arts podcast.
Brought to you by Martialytics. Easy to use, super powerful management software for your martial arts school.
All right, everybody. So it's that time of the week again, and joining me, well, I always say special guest, but this week it is a very special guest. We've got Mr. Stuart Wade, who is the guy who I've not spoken to properly for. We've had a few interactions at like events and stuff, a few 5 minutes here and there, but I haven't sat down and spoken to him properly in more than 2 decades, which is crazy. So just a little bit of background. When I first started out teaching back in the late 90s, Stuart was a student at the school at the time. How old would you have been then at the time? Do you remember?
That's a good question. Probably 9 or 10.
Wow.
I think. Yeah.
Now that makes me feel really. All the people who are watching the video version of this now are like, no. Yeah, it's a long. Man, yeah, but I would have been 19, and I'm coming up 44 now. So I mean, that puts. Yeah, those are back in the day. So we've got a lot to cover, really.
Yeah, just a bit.
So, for those that don't know, what are you up to these days? Then, what's your thing?
Sure. So, my thing is hypnotherapy. That's my business. That's what I work as, and not surprisingly to anybody that knows me, I work a lot with athletes and martial artists on helping them perform better, but also overcome any mental blocks and things like that.
Wow.
So yeah, that's what I'm doing. And at the moment, I'm a little bit busy being injured. So
no.
So yeah, the trainings had to take a little bit of a backseat just while I sort my hip out. And
it happens to us all, mate.
It is what it is. Lifetime of doing martial arts, and things catch up with you, don't they?
They do. Tell me about it. Absolutely, they do. So how long have you been doing that sort of thing? What was it about hypnotherapy that caught your attention? Is it something you've always been interested in, or was it something that kind of came onto your radar at some point and you thought, that sounds interesting, I'll do that?
Well, I'll try and keep the story as succinct as I can.
Okay. Or what have I unlocked here then?
Well, it's become my kind of origin story, really, getting into this. So when I was about, I'll skip a bit. When I was about 16 or 17, and I was competing internationally at the time, and I picked up a visualization practice from somewhere. Don't remember where, don't remember why, but I got into a bit of a routine where I'd be at the arena, I'd go somewhere away from the main hall, if you like, do my physical warm-up, and then I'd sit down, kneel down, and I'd shut my eyes and just visualize what I wanted to do out there on the mat or in the ring or whatever it might have been. And I always found that it just put me in the right mindset to go out and perform to my best. And the results didn't always go my way due to various reasons. I'm not bitter about any biased judges at all still. And but it always put me in a great headspace. Fast forward a bit, I did a degree in sports science at uni, and a third of that degree was sports psychology. So that gave me a bit more insight. And after graduating from uni, I went through a phase where I'd be competing and I started getting tired really quickly in some of the tournaments, in fights.
Right.
And with hindsight, my training probably could have been a bit smarter. My diet could definitely have been a bit better, but it was messing with my head. That was the thing. And I'd be going in thinking, crap, is it going to happen again? And I got referred to a hypnotherapist by a friend of mine. Went and saw this guy, thinking it was a bit weird.
I'm going to say, were you dubious or? Yeah.
Well, I was curious,
right?
But I was very much, that's a bit woo woo. That's a bit out there.
Yeah.
But in all honesty, it was amazing. It really shifted my mindset and the way that I felt in terms of the confidence in my fitness, and subsequently didn't have issues with it again. Fast forward a little bit again, and I'd gone through a breakup. You know, we've all been there. Wasn't in a great headspace. And I was reading an article in the Sunday Mirror newspaper that Paul McKenna had written.
Yep.
And found this article fascinating, and they were doing a competition, and they were going to pick 3 people from anywhere in the UK to go down to London and have Paul hypnotize you essentially at his house.
Wow.
What they didn't tell you at the time was that there would be a lovely embarrassing write-up in the Sunday Mirror about it.
Oh.
But anyway, I entered and I got picked, and I went
Wow.
down there. He and I got along famously. I didn't know until I met him that he also had a massive admiration for Bruce Lee, same as
Wow.
me. So we had a lot to talk about in that respect as well, tying back in with the martial arts.
Mm.
And so he did what he did. It was great. And that was the light bulb moment for me. I just thought, you know what, I need to do this. I'm fascinated. I'm sold.
Yeah.
And so I asked him what I should do, what I should study. And so he told me to train with his mentor, which I did. Then got qualified as a clinical hypnotherapist myself off the back of that. And that was just over 9 years ago now. And I've been working with clients ever since. But yeah, so it's been an interesting ride, you know.
Just a bit. Now, I got a question for you that you probably get asked a lot, and you're probably like, "Oh, it's that question again." But I've always wondered, what does the process? What does it feel like? Like if I go in and then I explain what my problems might be or how I want help or guidance, or whatever.
Mm.
Do you feel something changing during the process, or is it something that it's so subtle that it kind of changes without you realizing it's changed? I've always been interested in the process of how what it feels like, what the process, or maybe it's individual, maybe it's different for everybody. I don't know. I mean,
Yeah, that would be my answer.
yeah,
It's very much how an individual reacts to it. Like sometimes if I'm with a client and once we've finished the session, you know, they're about to leave and they can recount every single word I've said to them. They know exactly what's gone on, exactly what's been said. Other times they've not got a Scooby. They
right,
haven't got a clue. And so everybody responds to it differently. Some people feel quite almost out of body type
yeah,
experience. You know, some people feel completely present the whole way through. It is very much individualized, but across all of it, however you respond to it, it often has a, if not subtle, a profound effect.
yeah.
And yeah, it is
I've
amazing.
heard
I
people
love it.
say it's life changing, that
Mm,
they've gone
can
from
be.
being addicted to whatever unhealthy lifestyle to stopping. As much as that,
Mm,
I'm thinking, wow, that's when you think about it, it's and making, you know, what may be a small change in mental approach to it, the physical and lifestyle and, you know, social and emotional changes that it makes. Now, it's like stopping smoking or changing your approach to fitness, you know, from being a negative to a positive. I don't know. The knock-on effect from it is huge, I would imagine, for
mm,
some people. It must be very.
absolutely.
I bet you have it occasionally where people say, "Oh, you know, it's changed my life," and, you know, thank you for. It must feel weird when people come up to you and drop that on you.
Yeah, it is, but it's also very validating.
Yeah.
You know, because I'm very much convinced of the power of this.
Mm.
And I mean, I could tell you some stories with it, with clients and sessions that I've had where even I've thought, you know, how has it done that? How has
Mm.
that change happened? You know, and physical things. This
Mm.
is the biggest thing that was very early on in my career, something that I struggled to get my head around, where somebody, and this actually happened, somebody came to me with a severe limp, and you know, she'd been having shooting pains up and down her legs all night, didn't know what the problem was, thought she might have a what's the word, a trapped nerve in her
Yeah.
back.
Yeah.
And I like to plan what I'm going to do. I like to know what I'm dealing with going in.
Yeah.
This was very much off the cuff, and I wasn't prepared for it, and so I had to wing it. And 25 minutes of improvisational hypnotherapy, and she was able to stand up, move around freely with no pain, and walk
Mm.
out of there normally. Like, how's that just happened when all I've done is talk at her
Yeah.
for 25 minutes? but there's more and more scientific proof now and scientific studies going on that are actually proving that it has a real effect. I was listening to another podcast the other day where they had a neuroscientist on, and she cited a study where they had two groups. One group was just weightlifting in the gym. The goal was to see about how their strength changed through a weight training program. So one group was doing purely the weight training program. The other group was doing the same program, but also doing visualization exercises.
Okay.
The group that did visualization exercises got 15% stronger than the group that was just weightlifting. In the same amount of time.
Wow.
No other difference, So it has a real physiological effect on the body as well. It's amazing.
There's people listening to this now, like Googling the local clinical hypnotherapist.
Right.
Where can I find them?
Yeah, damn right.
It's amazing. I mean, you think now, we all, it's funny because I'll have conversations with people about this and they'll go, oh, no, I don't believe in any of that sort of thing. And I'm like, yes, but you've just got to remember the mind is an incredibly powerful thing, and it can do things without you knowing. I mean, we all seem to think, the martial artists like, no, I would never fall foul of anything like that. But it's like the amount of like subtle advertising, the things that it can make you do, then you don't even realize that it's doing. I'm sure you saw that very famous one. Was it Darren Brown that did it, where he put things in a shop and he planted an image into people's heads, and they didn't even know. They were walking around the shop looking at things, and they all had the same thing in their head by the end of it. And I was just like, that's just crazy. And there was no words involved. That was just imagery. It's like, so, if you understand how to control that, I suppose it's a powerful thing. Now, here's the thing. I suppose you can't professionally really admit to it, but have you ever done like a sneaky thing just to say, I wonder if I could get them to think this or to think that or do that just by saying this or that. You must have done it.
Well,
you can't admit to it, but I'm sure you have.
In a way, all ethical and above board, I must say. But it's the power of suggestion is a powerful thing. Let's just say that.
I'm like sitting here now, like paying attention to everything. I'm like, because I've actually seen at an event. It was a business event. Some guy got on the front row. I don't know how he did it. I don't know whether it was hand gestures or I don't know what it was, but he got a guy on the front row to go to sleep. And I was just like, Jesus. And everybody was like, how the hell did you do that? Because it was a genuine guy as well. It wasn't a plant, because we all knew him. And we were all in the same talk. I was like, how's he done it? And this guy was like, oh yeah, this. I'm like, wow, this is crazy. And I need to know more about this. So it's really powerful stuff. But I'm just looking at that shelf. Did you put that shelf up? That's got a lot of trophies on there. I'm very impressed with his shelf skills.
Yeah. My dad actually put that up, so he gets the credit for it. But yeah, it's
a lot of trophies.
Definitely standing firm. Yeah,
there's a lot of trophies.
Yeah,
is that all of them, or is that a collection of them?
At risk of sounding big-headed, no, that's about half the ones in the room.
Crikey.
Yeah.
All right, then let's go back. So when I was at Armthorpe's, this is late 90s. Mm-hmm. I moved early 2000. I think it was 2000 actually, moved to Doncaster. So we were doing tournaments, weren't we, that time? I remember. Were you sparring by that point? We'd sort of tournament sparring, or were we still doing forms and things?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Wow. So that would be late 90s. Because I always remember back then you were very, very quiet. Very quiet, very focused, very determined, driven, hardworking. And we'd go to the tournaments, and I remember you always did well at the tournaments. And then I left, so I didn't ever really get to see that next chapter, that next, so where did you go with it then after? Because I remember you'd done your second. I can't remember. I mean, you were definitely black belt, if not more, by the time I'd left. But yeah, where did that journey go from there after I'd moved along?
Sure. So I was actually a black belt when I first moved to Armthorpe.
Ah, yes, of course. I remember now.
Yeah.
I remember now.
Yeah, so it will probably have been my second Dan that I did before you left, I would
Yeah.
imagine.
Yeah.
But yeah, so from starting at Armthorpe and doing the little interclub tournaments and then
Yeah.
venturing out further afield to some of the ones that we did around the country,
That's right.
I then stepped up a little bit, and I actually, my first Great Britain representation was when I was 13, and that was at the French Open.
I remember that.
Yeah.
I
So
remember that. Now you
yeah,
said
I
it.
think if I remember right, I think myself, Andy Taylor, and Danny Ball all went.
Yeah, I
I
remember you
think.
being on the video because we're on belang.com. It was like, oh wow,
Yeah,
look, they're on belang.com. You've made it, but
yeah.
you'd made it when you were on that website.
Exactly, that was the one. But yeah, so that was the first one, and then I think pretty much every year after that, until my mid-20s, when I kind of stopped competing. I never officially retired, but I just kind of stepped away a little bit,
Hmm.
mainly due to work, but also due to being annoyed with politics and things like that.
Oh well, don't we know it?
Yeah, but yeah, pretty much every year I was selected to either represent England or Great Britain at a big international, whether it
Hmm.
was a world championship or a European championship, and yeah, traveled around a lot and with various different organizations as well. I always
Okay.
wanted to compete against the best people,
Hmm.
and not just that was my main gripe with martial arts competitions, was that it was so fragmented with
Yeah.
all the different organizations, and each organization had people who were loyal to that.
Yeah.
They didn't compete outside of that. And for me, I just wanted to compete against everybody. So
Yeah.
I would go to ISKA, I'd go to WACO, I'd go to WKA, and all these, you name it, all the different
Yeah.
other organizations, because I wanted to
All the
get out.
letters.
Yeah, exactly. And also, I wanted to win as many trophies as I could.
Absolutely.
And so yeah, so I competed around the world and had a lot of success. And yeah, it's something I look back on fondly.
Was there a specific um, weight division or class or anything in particular? We full contact or light continuous ring? Were you a bit of everything?
Well, it's funny because it was never formally full contact, but you know as well as I do, it's just a
Yeah.
name, it's just a label,
Yeah. It's
and
subjective, isn't it? One person's
exactly.
points is another person's, street
Yeah,
fight. Yeah, it's different for everybody.
yeah, exactly. So I tended to compete in points, continuous, and then doing the forms as well.
Okay. Oh,
And
so you kept up with the forms as well.
yeah, it more became the traditional forms that I
Okay.
moved into, and I won a couple of world titles at the traditional forms, and I won a couple of world titles in the fighting as well. But
Wow.
I tended to fight at, as I became an adult, should I say. I tended to fight as a heavyweight, and I was undersized as a heavyweight.
Right.
I was far too small. And I remember um, competing at the US Open in, let me think, 2011, and it was interesting because I was on the ISK UK team,
Right.
and the the lead up to it wasn't the best. I crashed at Clifton Findlay's flat the night before,
Right.
and then me, him, and it was the Thursday. We flew to Florida. I've always struggled to sleep on planes, so I didn't really get much sleep. Weighed in the following morning,
Mm.
fought Friday lunchtime, and I was fighting at heavyweight. My first fight, I went in against the guy who went on to win the whole thing,
Right.
and he outweighed me by 2 stone.
What?
And 30 seconds into the first round, I had no energy. I
Oh
was
no.
just I was just dead to the world. And I actually dropped the guy twice through the fight, once illegally, granted. But
Well,
you know, this is the thing. And you do what you've got to do in desperate
yeah.
times. And but yeah, so So the fight wasn't really going my way, and the first round ended, and I went back to the corner, and Clifton wasn't actually in my corner at that one. It was oh God, I forget his name. The guy whose school is Bolton Dragons.
Oh, now I'm going to do the same thing.
Yeah, yeah.
The guy whose name we've forgotten. We're really sorry if you're listening.
Yes,
We've
Leisha
both been
Morrison's
kicked in the
dad.
heads too many times over the last however many decades. So it's
yeah, just a bit. Yeah, Leisha Morrison's dad.
Okay, there you go. Let's just call him that.
Yes, Mr. Morrison. Mr. Morrison. He was in my corner, and he was my only corner man. And as I say, I went back to the corner after the first round, and I was seeing 3 of him.
Oh Jesus!
It was just like, yeah, this isn't good.
No.
And so yeah, then I ended up losing the fight on points as it was, and then the other guy went on to win the whole thing. But the main disappointment for me there was just that adrenaline dump. You know, and I think with the jet lag and everything else, it just didn't go plan. But yeah,
well, it's a life lesson, isn't it? I suppose
it is. It is.
You know to expect that adrenaline. It's a horrible feeling because you feel like you're ready to go. I'm ready. I'm gonna. You know, it's just like someone's just pulled the plug.
Yep. Literally.
Forget how to breathe. Your legs stop working. Your arms just feel like they weigh 5 times as much as they did before. It's just horrible. And it's the realization of it happening as well.
Oh yeah, yeah,
it's
and you
horrible.
can do nothing about it.
No, you can do all the training under the sun, and you can't. It's like, oh, it's happening. I can't. Oh yeah, it's great. What can you do? Well, you can come and see you. Actually, you can help.
well, that's it. Yeah, I could have done with some of this knowledge back then. You know.
Absolutely. So let's go back. I mentioned this before. Before we spoke today about the old days, the old Armthorpe days. What memories do you have of that? Because people keep reminding me of stuff that I've completely forgotten about. But Christ, I was. I mean, it's all right. You say, we said, you were a child at the time, but I was 19. I was thrown into that from. I remember being a super keen, Mortal Kombat obsessed, everything at the time. All the things that were out at the time. And just chucked into teaching with no experience at all. And so a lot of that is a bit of a blur and a bit of a blank. There's odd memories I have of things like, Danny was always breaking stuff. The amount of times he kicked a ball through a window, or he was always breaking things. But I do have good I have strong, fond memories of, because looking back on it now, I would teach, and then Morgan, who was one of the instructors, he'd take over, but then I would go down the other end and we'd jump around and we'd do stuff, and then I'd teach again, and then I'd have a break and we'd jump around. And then, whereas now, any time I can get off the mats, I'm like, sit down, sit down. I can't even, begin to understand how I did it, to be honest. But I just wondered what you remember of those times. And
yeah, it's similar really, except from the teaching, because I wasn't teaching then. But yeah, jumping around and doing flips on the crash mats, and
yes,
learning how to do kip ups and aerial cartwheels and all that business. Yeah, it was it was fun.
It was. Now I remember that I actually drove through Armthorpe randomly. Because the motorway was closed, and I came through, and that building's still there, but the rest of it's just totally different. I couldn't get my head around how much the place had changed, but yeah, that building's still there, and I think it's a dance school or something. I thought that's what I saw on the sign anyway.
That's right.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh wow, it's actually still there. It's not been bulldozed or disappeared like it happens with a lot of buildings. But it was crazy to think. That's back in the dark ages, isn't it, the 1990s? But literally just came off the mats. Now you're teaching full time, like that. And I'm like, that's frightening when you think about it. So I was kind of learning on the job. And I just remember the first time walking in and just having this room full of 4-year-olds. Thinking, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? Like, I've never done this before. And thankfully it was a sink or swim, and I didn't sink too much from what I remember. But
yeah.
So did you go on to doing any teaching and instructing later on at all? If you did dabble in that at all, yeah.
Yes. So I forget how old I was. I must have been probably 14, 15, something like that, going through the SWAT instructor program.
Oh, so you did all that as well. Cool.
Yeah. Did all of that, and teaching was actually my after school job when I was in sixth form.
Oh, wow.
I would get the bus from school, get off in Armthorpe, and I would then teach.
Oh, that's cool.
4 till 8 p.m. 4 nights a week after school. That was my after school job. And then I actually, when I went to uni, I did a bit of training at Jim Connolly's school in Newcastle, and
Yeah.
I was actually teaching for Jim on Saturdays as well while
Oh,
I
wow.
was
So
at
you kept
uni.
it going.
So I kept it going, and then I've taught the odd class and seminar at Andy Crittenden's after university, but it's not been a consistent thing. It's been more sporadic because I went into my career then. So yeah.
Awesome. No, I do bump into people occasionally and we catch up. I actually caught up with Stuart, who was Mr. Wilkes. And what I tell you what's really nice is Stuart is one of the most respectful people that because I don't feel like I've earned any level of respect, but he'll always refer to people as sir, and I've always noticed that, even though really I was just some 19-year-old kid that was paid to stand in front of him and tell him what to do, and all these years later you'll always sign off on your messages with sir, and I'm thinking that is so awesome, that's so respectful, and you don't come across that very much anymore. I have always noted that.
I appreciate you saying that, and because I very much subscribe to the traditional values of being disciplined and having respect for not just your elders, but especially your instructors.
Yeah.
And you, like you say, you don't see it all that much nowadays. And I'll tell you a little story. So when was it now? May last year, I went to Miami to see a friend of mine, and my friend was actually training in South Florida with Roger Kral, who some of the listeners will know was Amanda Nunes, her head trainer when she was at the height of her powers in the UFC. So he was training with Roger at the time, and my mate arranged for us both to go and have a session with him. And little did I know, my mate's plan was to duck out in the warm-up and let me have a private with Roger, which was amazing. It was incredible. And we actually had 2 sessions while I was there. But one of the things that stood out the most to me, because again, you think Amanda Nunes, MMA, UFC, sport, mixed martial arts, cage fighting, you think not barbaric as such, but it's at the extreme end of martial arts, and you don't think of it necessarily of having the traditional values and such. While I was waiting off the mats with my mate for Roger, he was dealing with some guys that were refurbing the gym at the time. He walked past us and he bowed onto the mats and he walked on. And I said to my mate, "Did you see that? That's the way that I've been brought up, and you hardly ever see that nowadays." And I mentioned it to him, and he said, "Yeah." He said, "Look, I'm a traditional martial artist. I work with some of the biggest knuckleheads in the gym, and each day I'm teaching them about respect and the traditional martial arts values because I am not losing that." And I'm like, hell yes, I've got even more respect for you now for saying that and doing it,
Yeah. How are you must have done this, because I have. It's so ingrained, and automatically it's just part of you being and every fiber to bow in. We've done it in the wrong place at the wrong time. I've done my best one that I ever did was I went to meet the parents of my then girlfriend, and I was so nervous when I went into the living room. I bowed into the living room. And then I was like, I have just done that, and everyone's looking at me, and I can't rewind time to get out of this now. So I'm just gonna have to style it like,
Wow. Yeah, I can't beat that one.
You got a similar one though. You must have done it. We've all done it before.
I'm sure I have, but nothing's coming to mind. But that's a fantastic one. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'd done it, and I'm like, I can't. Like, what do I do? I've done it now. Oh,
Yeah.
just pretend like it never happened, and never just think he's a very, very respectful young man, isn't he? But they're like, oh, what an idiot. Cool. So, what have you got going on at the minute then? Anything you'd like to share? Anything in particular? I know. Did you say that you're doing a podcast as well? Or did I mention? Did you mention that, or am I thinking things here? Or did...
Well, I am doing a bit of research at the moment to see
Okay.
about maybe doing my own podcast
Oh,
with,
you heard it here first.
funnily enough, with my friend from Miami. We're looking at doing it together, but no, I've been doing the rounds, appearing on some different podcasts recently. So
Okay.
yeah, I went through a phase when I was living down in London a couple of years ago, and I was getting on podcasts regularly, and then I fell out of it a little bit, but I love doing it.
Yeah.
And so recently I've gotten back on that horse, and yeah, it's great fun. But no, in terms of what I'm doing, just the business and rehabilitating this hip, and hopefully, touch wood, I'm gonna have a training session on Saturday and see how we get on.
Hopefully it
But
works well for you, mate.
yeah,
'Cause I know what it's like.
yeah,
I mean,
thank
I've been
you.
14 months now with this knee, and it's just you
Mm.
feel like you're getting somewhere with it, and then you're back to square one. But it's for me anyway. The bit that I struggled with, obviously not being able to use my knee, was frustrating. But the first couple of weeks was okay. You must hear this a lot. The first couple of weeks was fine, and then the bit that I wasn't ready for. And I'm guessing it must have been a chemical change in my head, because I wasn't physically training. I'd gone from always being physical to not doing anything for about 5 weeks. I can't remember a time in my life where I'd stopped for that long. And then my head fell to bits. Like, I'm not ashamed to say it. My head fell to bits, and I didn't understand why at the time. I thought, why? Why am I so grumpy and short-tempered and agitated? And I think it just must have been because I stopped being physical, and it just, the chemical makeup, it must have all just shifted a little bit, and it was awful. But now I'm prepped for it. I'm kind of ready for a little bit now. The next, I'm going to have more surgery, and I know there's going to be that point where I'm be like, right, I can put things in place now to make sure I've got that sort of mental safety net when it hits, because it hit me like a ton of bricks. I went from being fine one day to the next day just being, I can't be bothered with anything. Like, literally, I hate martial arts. I don't want to do anything. I don't want to watch it. I don't want to see it. I've gone from being excited about turning on the TiVo box to see what UFC had recorded at the weekend to watch, to going, no, don't like it. Not interested. Which was frightening, really, when you consider it's
Yeah.
But yeah, you must come across that sort of thing time to time, or a lot, maybe in different fields. But
Yeah, absolutely.
the physical change, stopping being physical, I was ready for it affecting my body, but not my head. That was weird when that happened.
Yeah, you're exactly right. It's you don't realize how much mental and emotional benefit you get from exercising, and especially if you're doing something that you really love, like martial arts. You don't realize the benefit you're getting while you're doing it until you can't for an extended period of time, and all those feel good hormones that you get after training, they're not there anymore. And you're not able to do the things that you're used to. So that it's very much a downward spiral, and it can really catch you out if you're not careful. And it happens to the best of us. That's the thing. Yeah, no one's exempt.
Yeah, that's it. But now I know, obviously, for the future, I've been well, not too many times. I have to take a bit more time out, that it's there, and I know now. What actually worked for me, I just started reading a lot. I think that's why my way of channeling it a little bit. I guess I just read a lot and learned about a lot of new things, and that seemed to, I don't know whether it ticks the box in my head that, oh look, you're active, you're doing something, you're learning, you're thinking about things. I don't know, but anyway, brains are strange things, but very complex, clever things at the same time, aren't they? But okay, cool.
Oh yeah.
Cool. So you say you injured your hip. Was it training, or was it just
well
brokenness from age? Bit of both.
Do you know what? I think there was something underlying, something building up, and then I was talking to a friend of mine, and he He used to be a professional footballer, played in the
Yeah.
Premiership, top level.
Oh wow, yeah, top level.
And we were talking about interval running,
Mm.
and I'd gotten back into running quite a bit. And he said, "Oh, have you ever done kilometer intervals? We used to do some of them when I was playing football." I was like, "No, actually, I haven't done that, but I'm going to give it a go." And so I did. And when I was warming up, my hip didn't feel right, but I
Mm.
wasn't a happy camper that day. I was in a bit of a mood for whatever reason. And I thought, I don't care. I'm going to go and do this anyway. And I wish I never did it
Mm.
because I strained the psoas, the main hip flexor. And that was probably 2 months ago now. And
Mm.
I've been training and I've done bits, but then I'm wrecked for 3 days afterwards, and I've had various treatments and whatnot, and I've actually had this week off completely because I'm just fed up
Yeah.
of trying to do stuff and it then just knocking me back for days afterwards. So I'm actually taking my own advice and just resting this week and doing my rehab exercises. I'm rolling, I'm stretching, I'm doing what I need to do,
Mm.
and it's feeling a hell of a lot better. So I'm hopeful that this weekend I can start to get back into things, and
Oh yeah.
yeah, it'll be good to go. Because I'd been, just before that happened, I'd gotten back into martial arts training a little bit more. I'd
Mm.
been down to train at Andy Crittenden's where I train when I'm in Doncaster. I'd been to train at Danny and Jamie's place in Hull as
Oh,
well,
that's cool.
and so I was getting back into the swing of it then, and then this happened. So I was like, I can't even kick, you know.
Ah.
So it's frustrating, but it is what it is.
It is. It is. Well, hopefully, like you say, weekend you'll be able to
Mm,
get back on the mats and get a bit doing it, hit some bag, whatever you're planning on. I don't know what you're planning
yeah,
on doing,
yeah.
but we always have these. I remember you have these ideas. I'll just do a little bit of this, and then I wonder if I
Mm.
can do this. Or maybe I'll just try a bit of that, and then before you know it, yeah, back to square one again. But cool. So
Yeah.
if people want to find out more about you and your work and things, what could they do? What can they find out more?
Sure. So the best thing to do really is add me on social media. I'm on Instagram at HypnoPTStu, and Facebook, just Stuart Wade, just my name on there. That's the
Mm,
easiest way to find me. And if you want to email me, it's Stuart at
mm.
swperformancecoaching.co.uk.
'Cause I'm just thinking now, actually, now we're doing this like this. Is this the sort of stuff? Can you do it virtually as well? Can you?
Yep.
Wow. Okay, I didn't even
Yep.
think about that. So the
Yeah.
world's your oyster, really.
It really is. And it's only since the dreaded lockdown happened
Yep.
that this became a thing. I was a bit skeptical beforehand, wasn't sure how well it would work. But when my hand got forced, tried it, and actually it works really, really well, provided your internet connection at both ends holds up.
Yeah.
You're good to go. So yeah, so I've got clients around the world now as well, which it's great because I'm getting into markets and meeting people that I wouldn't have met had it not been for being able to do it virtually.
There you go, guys. So there you go, little plug for him there. So go check him out if you're interested. I've always been interested. I remember it was, I don't know how many years ago, I bumped into you at a tournament, and I was like, actually
Mm.
quite interested in that. And then
Mm.
I ended up finding myself thinking of reasons. Like, what could I think of? What do I need help with? What can thinking that's not the way it works. You're not supposed to search for something in your head. There's supposed to be something there that you definitely need help with. Um, but yeah, mine's delegating. I know that for sure. Jesus,
Yeah,
absolute
it's
control freak.
I get that.
Yeah,
It's funny though that you mentioned that about sort of thinking about things that you need help with, and that's a bit of a misconception
is it
that
really?
to have hypnotherapy, like there needs to be something wrong
Right.
that you need to deal with. Don't get me wrong, most people that come to see me, there is an issue that they are struggling with, but some clients, they just want to be better. I have one client who is an amateur MMA fighter, and he's at a good level. He's got aspirations to turn pro, and he's very much on that path. He has, unless he hasn't told me them, he's got no problems. His whole
Mm.
thing is he just wants to perform better. He wants to fight better. He
Got yeah.
wants he wants to progress. And so that's what we focus on when we work together. And
Cool.
it's been going well so far.
So again, forgive my naivety with this, because I was about to do the whole finishing up thing then, and then more things come into my head. So how does it work then? Is it a little bit like like a mental physio session? So you have like multiple. It depends on what needs working on, the amount of time it takes varies from person to person, or is it one session for some things, or how does it? Is it like a layering thing? Stripping away and rebuilding, or how does it? Without giving away the trade secrets.
No. I mean, it can be all of the above, all of the above. Generally, it very much depends on how someone responds to it. You could get an issue sorted in one session. It might take a little bit longer. The way I tend to work is I'll do a consultation with a client first for up to 90 minutes. And that's where I'm trying to get to the root of the issue. I want to understand them and what's going on with them as best I can so that I can formulate a plan specific to them to get them to where they want to be. And after that, I then do 4 sessions with them, ideally spread a week apart. And then we do one more session a month after that last one. And majority of the time, it's all sorted and they're good to go. If I've done a good job, I don't see them again.
Right.
If they feel that they want like top-up sessions, as some people refer to them as, for their own peace of mind, if nothing else, we do that on an ad hoc basis as and when they feel they want it. But it's not something that I push on anyone. It's generally that little program, no more than 2 months, and people are good to go. So yeah, it's great.
Right. It's interesting that you've said that. So the way that I was thinking about it was like, if I was to say I'm struggling to stay focused on what I need to do to take my podcast to the next level. That's one way of thinking it. Or could it be just as simple as I want to have the best podcast there's ever been. That's what I want. And then we can work on what I need to change to get to that. So that's coming at it from both angles, I suppose, isn't it? Okay, so you could work it from both. So I could say I want to have the best podcast there's ever been, which I know is a bit out there, but and then chip away at what I need to work on to get to that point. So wow, okay,
yeah, that's it.
It's like that.
It's unpacking as well what that actually means. What is the best podcast ever?
What is it?
To you,
to me,
well.
And
then what do we need to do psychologically and emotionally to allow you to believe and have the conviction that you can have that, in addition to doing some of the practical stuff, So
wow,
it's very comprehensive, and that's part of the reason why I love it.
It is. It's got me. I'd always thought of it as being a fix a problem to get a result, but I guess it can be the other way around as well. It could be to get to the result, we have to find what the problems are, as opposed to outright knowing
beliefs.
Yeah. Wow, that's really powerful stuff. Cool. Well, thank you for sharing all that. That's really interesting. So, guys, if anybody's interested out there, what I will do to save you having to rewind back through the recording is I'll put the links in the show notes so that you can go and click them. You can go and find out more about Stuart and what he does. But thank you for your time. I've really, really enjoyed this, catching up a little bit as well.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure. Yeah, it's been great.
If you ever get your podcast started and you want some random old bloke from Doncaster, well, I'm not from that. I'm living in Harrogate. I've upgraded. That's all I say to people. I've moved a bit further north. But no, joking aside, if you ever want me on there, just let me know.
Yeah, thank you.
Chat about whatever it is. But best of luck with your training, and hope you get over this your hip problem. And
thank you very much. Yeah, best of luck with the knee as well.
Yeah, I need it. I think I need to come and see you. I need to have every sort of therapy going to try and get this. You remember some of the idiotic things that we used to do, which I'm sure has probably contributed to the fact that this knee now hinges both ways pretty much. So anyway, enough of that. Cheers, though. Thanks for your time, and we'll make sure we do this again before another 20 years, because that would be a very strange with my Zimmer frame in the old people's home. But anyway, pleasure.
Absolutely.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.